Hey, I'm Jay, and today we're diving into one of the most haunting true crime stories you've never heard until now. For over 50 years, the identity of a young girl brutally murdered at just 17 remained a chilling mystery. But this month, April 2026, everything changed. The latest DNA breakthrough has finally confirmed what many had feared. Laura Ann Aime, the innocent teen taken too soon, was one of the victims of the infamous serial killer, Ted Bundy. It's a discovery that sent shockwaves through the true crime community, and it leaves us with more questions than answers. How did Laura's life intersect with Bundy's, and how did the truth stay buried for more than 5 decades? Laura Ann Aime was just 17 years old, living in Utah in 1974. She was at that stage of life where everything is just beginning. Friends, freedom, late nights, plans for the future, the kind of life that feels wide open. People who knew her described her as vibrant and full of life. The kind of person you notice in a room, not because she tried to stand out, but because she naturally did. And then, suddenly, she was gone. On October 31st, 1974, Laura attended a Halloween party. It was supposed to be a normal night. Music, friends, laughter. At some point during the night, she left. She never made it home. At first, it didn't immediately feel like something was wrong. Teenagers stay out late. Plans change. But as hours turned into the next day, and then into silence, that uneasy feeling started to settle in. Her family began searching, calling friends, checking places she might have gone, hoping for something simple, something explainable, but nothing came back. Days passed, then weeks, and then, on Thanksgiving Day, everything changed. Hikers discovered a body along an embankment near American Fork Canyon Road. It was a remote area, the kind of place you don't just stumble into by accident. It was Laura. What investigators found at that scene was deeply disturbing. Her body had been left without clothing. She had been severely beaten. There were clear signs that she had been restrained. A nylon stocking had been used to strangle her, and one detail stood out in a way that investigators couldn't ignore. Evidence suggested she had not been killed immediately after her disappearance. There were indications she had been held for days before her body was left there. Just think about that for a second. For days, no one knew where she was, what she was going through, what she was experiencing. That realization alone changes everything about how you see this case. At the time, investigators didn't have the tools we have today. They worked the scene, collected evidence, followed leads, but nothing gave them the answer they needed. The case slowly went cold, and for decades, that's where it stayed. Laura became one of those names that sits quietly in the background of true crime history, not forgotten, but never fully understood. But behind the scenes, something else was beginning to form. A pattern, because around that same time, another name was starting to surface. A man who seemed ordinary on the outside, charming, intelligent, easy to trust. Ted Bundy. Years later, as Bundy's crimes were uncovered across multiple states, investigators began revisiting older cases that had never been solved, cases that looked similar. Laura's case was one of them, but similarity isn't proof. And for decades, that's all it was, until this month, April 2026. A statement from the Utah County Sheriff's Office noted that forensic science advancements made it possible to confirm irrefutably that DNA evidence recovered from Laura's body verified the existence of DNA belonging to Bundy. According to the Utah County Sheriff's Office, the investigation involved re-examining evidence, using advanced forensic science, and matching DNA from bodily fluids found on her remains to Bundy's profile. More than 50 years later, the answer finally came, and it confirmed something deeply unsettling. Laura Ann Aime had crossed paths with Ted Bundy, and she never got away. What they were uncovering about Ted Bundy was deeply disturbing. He had been responsible for a series of abductions, assaults, and murders targeting young women, often approaching them in public places, pretending to be injured or in need of help before luring them away. Many of his victims were beaten, sexually assaulted, and killed, and in several cases, evidence suggested that victims were held for periods of time, subjected to prolonged control and violence before their deaths, revealing a level of manipulation and cruelty that made him especially dangerous. What makes Laura's story even more disturbing is what her family later revealed. Her niece, Tora Stuckey, shared that Bundy may have been around Laura before she disappeared, that he had allegedly stalked her, even gone as far as pretending to be her boyfriend at times. If that's true, then this wasn't random. It means he had been watching her, studying her, waiting. That detail changes the entire tone of this case, because it suggests intention, planning, obsession, not chance. When the confirmation finally came this April 2026, it brought something the family had waited decades for. Not peace, but answers. Laura's sister, Michelle Impala, said she believes Laura would be really happy to know that it's been closed. It's a simple statement, but when you think about everything behind it, the years of not knowing, the unanswered questions, the waiting, it carries weight, because closure doesn't erase what happened. It just replaces the unknown with something real, and sometimes that truth is harder to live with. For decades, Laura wasn't connected to Bundy in a confirmed way. She existed in that space of uncertainty. Now she's part of a much darker story, one that spans states, victims, and years of calculated violence. But in all of that, it's important not to lose who she was. Laura wasn't just a victim in a case file. She was 17. She had a life ahead of her, plans she never got to live out, and for over 50 years, her story sat unfinished. Now, at least, we know how it ends. As for the man behind it all, Ted Bundy, he was arrested, tried, and convicted for multiple murders. He was sentenced to death, and in 1989 he was executed in the electric chair in Florida, bringing an end to one of the most chilling killing sprees in American history. But even now, one question still sits quietly in the background. How many more stories like hers are still waiting to be uncovered? Because if this case has shown anything, it's that time doesn't bury the truth. It just delays it, and sometimes it takes decades before it finally comes to the surface. This is the story of Laura Ann Aime, a life taken too soon, and a truth that waited over half a century to be heard. If this story made you think, I'd really like to hear your perspective. What stands out to you the most about this case? And if you're into real, deeply researched true crime stories like this, you already know what to do.